Section 3. A love story, making a connection. I left my parents' house with a box of belongings and a heart still raw from grief. The silence that had smothered me there was finally behind me. For the first time in years, I could breathe without fear of being silenced, shamed, or cast out. Wilmington was only supposed to be a 6-month contract, but to me it was freedom. The grief over losing Kelta still followed me, sharp and unpredictable, but the doubts that had haunted me, that I was too broken to build a life, too fragile to help anyone else, began to fade. Away from the toxic home where her name was never spoken, I could feel space opening inside me again. I didn't yet know what waited ahead, that love would find me again, that I would discover connection as steady and surprising as a new breath of air. What Kelta had awakened in me, the truth that I was lovable, would not be lost. And soon, with Lynn, it would grow into a life I had never dared to imagine. Chapter 13. Moving to Wilmington. My adult life takes off. When I accepted a 6-month contract as a technical writer at Corning Glass in Wilmington, North Carolina, I felt a strange mix of relief and guarded hope. The pay, especially with the $65 to $85 per diem that wasn't taxed, meant I could finally make ends meet on my own. I took everything with me, though the contract was temporary. Maybe part of me wanted to leave the door open to return after 6 months. Maybe part of me already knew I would never go back. The truth was, leaving my parents' house wasn't about logistics. It was about survival. Growing up, I had learned the art of hiding, sharing only enough to appear as if I was doing what was expected, while keeping my real feelings out of sight. In those last months under their roof, that old strategy had become my lifeline. I gave them just enough to keep the peace, talk of job applications, polite conversation, while my deeper grief and panic stayed locked away. What I didn't say was that every day under their roof felt like I was disappearing. Donna, my new roommate, was friendly and welcoming. In retrospect, it amazes me that a woman who had survived domestic violence was willing to take in a male roommate, a choice that speaks to her resilience and trust. We went out together a few times, but nothing romantic ever developed. Mostly, it was just comforting to share a home with someone who was easy to be around. For the first time in years, I could sit in a living room without scanning for the next sharp word or measuring every move against my mother's cold judgment. That simple comfort was more healing than I realized. Over the next few months, Donna and I would share moments of ordinary friendship. But in that first week in Wilmington, the most important thing I did was attend a poetry reading, the poetry reading that changed everything. That first week, I decided to attend a poetry reading at the Coastline Convention Center. Martin Kirby had encouraged me to keep sharing my writing, and I knew I wanted more than quiet evenings in my room. I wanted to build a circle where I could belong. The reading was on the 4th floor, overlooking the Cape Fear River. As the sun set, its light streamed through tall windows, scattering into a kaleidoscope of reds, oranges, and blues across the water and spilling into the room. The warmth of that light clung to me like a promise. The room was small, maybe 10 or 15 people, intimate in a way that made every voice feel important. Dusty, the MC, moved through the group with an ease that reminded me of what I had always longed for in a mother: calm authority, warmth without judgment. When it was my turn, I read a few poems I had written about Kelta and the grief that still weighed on me. My voice didn't shake the way I feared it would. The applause that followed felt genuine. As I sat down, Dusty passed by, and her look met mine. It wasn't just a glance. And it was a message. You did great. You're welcome here. You belong. Later she called our poems gifts. And for the first time, I believe she meant mine, too, to bring grief and loss into the open and have it received as a gift. That was something no medication had ever given me. The light from the windows faded into twilight, and for the first time in a long time, I felt anchored. It wasn't that Kelta was still with me. She wasn't in Wilmington, but the love she had given me had planted something I carried forward, the belief that I was worth loving. That gift placed me in a position to feel the warmth of this new place, to receive Dusty's welcome, and to let the applause of strangers sink in. In hypnosis, they call this an anchor, a cue that connects you to a particular state of mind. I had never created one deliberately, but that night I discovered one had been planted in me. Kelta's love had given me the capacity to feel calm, belonging, and safety here in Wilmington under a sunset I would never forget.